Rodriguez, and I'm going to talk about biology fields of study, its branches, and how life started in the plants.
Biology's fields of study and branches of biology. To define biology's fields of study, first we have to know what biology is. The word biology is composed by the Greek words bios, that means life, and logos, that means study. So we can understand the term biology as the study of life and all the living organisms. It examines the structure, function, growth, origin, evolution, and distribution of living things. Biology covers life itself, and due to the complexity and breadth of this topic, it is necessary to divide it into various branches, so we can give the necessary emphasis to each subject. The branches derived from biology are anatomy, anthropology, botany, embryology, biomedicine, biochemistry, genetics, immunology, virology, and zoology. Now, we know what biology studies, but a usual question that comes with this is how? How did life start in the planet? Humans have wondered about this answer to the existence almost as long as we have been able to wonder. And although most of the times we attribute that to a supreme being, or to generate it spontaneously, everything that has previously happened gave rise to a system, based in RNA and DNA, capable of storing information to create various molecules and edit its modifications. These surfaces might not only have concentrated these organic compounds together, but also help organize them into patterns much like our genes do now.
Rodriguez, and today I'm going to explain topics of the characteristics of living things and the difference between the eukaryotic and the prokaryotic cell. There are some characteristics that can unify living things, and that can be summarized in 8 points. The first one is the organization. Life on Earth is organized in levels in which the lower ones give sustenance to the superiors, and nothing can exist or function without this composite organization. The next one is the genetic code, which is a sequence of nitrogenous bases that combine to produce words in a language understandable to all living beings, so it is considered to be universal. The genetic code indicates the sequence of amino acids that code for 22 amino acids that constitute all the proteins of all organisms in Earth. The next one is the response to stimuli. As we know, living beings can respond to different stimuli such as light, sound, temperature, chemical substances, among others. This means that they can be external or internal. Next we have homeostasis, which refers to the set of self-regulation phenomena that led to the conservation of steadiness in the composition and properties of the internal environment of an organism that allows it to have a free life. An example of this is the regulation of the corporal temperature to maintain vital function. The next characteristic is metabolism, where we obtain and use energy. Metabolism involves the destruction of molecules, that is, catabolism, and the formation of new molecules, or anabolism. Catabolic processes involve the releasing of energy, and anabolic processes use the energy obtained through catabolism to build new components, for instance, proteins. Now we have growth. As we know, all living beings, to a greater or lesser extent, increase their volume, that is, they grow. Growth implies the incorporation of new biomolecules into the organism, which is synthesized for that purpose. Now we have reproduction. Reproduction implies that the information transmitted from one generation to the next one is done through the inherit molecule. In the genetic code, it found all the information necessary to create a new individual, which will express characteristics similar or identical to those of its parents. Reproduction can be asexual, sexual, or parasexual. The main characteristic of asexual reproduction is the fact that the descendant is genetically identical to its predecessor. An example of asexual reproduction are plants that can reproduce asexually when a part of them is divided, for example, a branch of a root. Sexual reproduction involves the fertilization of two different cells, the sperm and the egg. The main advantage of this type of reproduction is that the new individual arises from the combination of the genetic material of both cells. In parasexual reproduction, DNA is carried out by a bridge, a transmitted agent, or bacterium. There are some differences between eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells contain membrane-bound organelles, including a nucleus. Eukaryotes can be single-celled or multi-celled, such as you, me, plants, fungi, and insects. Bacteria are an example of prokaryotes. Prokaryotic cells do not contain a nucleus or any other membrane-bound organelle.
My name is Samantha Ruiz Rivera, and I'm going to talk to you about the history of the microscope, the cell, and the cell theory.
Now we're going to talk about the history of the microscope, the cell, and the cell theory. The field of study of the optics took hundreds of years to develop. In Italy, artisans began to carve magnifying glasses that were used as spectacles. Gradually, this use obligated manufacturers to improve and refine their carving techniques, which culminate in the invention of transcendental instruments such as the telescope and the microscope. But who invented the compound microscope? With absolute certainty, we can say that nobody knows the answer. Perhaps Zacharias Janssen, Galileo Galilei, or Cornelius Drebbel were the inventors. The microscope was invented at the end of the 16th century, and the first person who named this invention as a microscope was Giovanni Febvre in 1625. Historical evidence points to Zacharias Janssen as the most likely inventor, since he worked with his father and both were engaged in making glasses. Janssen's microscope had the basics: one lens that worked as an objective and the other as an eyepiece. Microscopes were not very popular among scientists due to the aberrations caused by defects of the lenses and the very nature of the light. In the 19th century, it was possible to perfect the microscope, and it became a handy tool, especially in the medical field. Now, the cells. Cells are complex thermodynamic structures that use energy to maintain the conditions that make possible their existence. All organisms are composed of cells, one or more. Although there are different types of cells, and each type has its own particularities, they share the following three characteristics: plasma membrane, cytoplasm, and genetic material. The postulates of the cellular theory affirm that the cell is the morphological and structural unit of all living beings. In other words, all living beings are made up of cells and the products these cells generate. Every cell comes from a pre-existing one. This postulate debunks the theory of the spontaneous generation. The cell is the physiological unit of life. All vital functions take place within the cells, and only one is enough to generate life. And the cell contains the hereditary information for the control of its development, growth, reproduction, and to transmit that information to the next
Hi,
generation.
my name is Milena Cadena, and I'm going to talk about the cell transport and the levels of organization.
Cell transport. Everything that enters or leaves a cell has to pass through the cell membrane, which is an organelle that is present in all cell types. Transport can be classified according to the amount of molecules that pass through the membrane. If they pass one by one, then transportation can be active or passive. Active. This transport expends energy and goes against gradients of concentration. Passive. This transport does not waste energy and goes in favor of concentration gradient. It can be simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, and ultrafiltration or dialysis. Simple diffusion. The molecules cross the lipid bilayer. However, other small polar molecules with no electrical charge, such as water, can pass through the membrane only in small proportions. Large polar molecules with no electrical charge, such as glucose, can pass through it, but only in minimal proportions. Facilitated diffusion. The passage of molecules depends on the presence of the integral membrane proteins that allow this passage. These proteins can form channels or complex transporters. Levels of organization. The first level is the complexity is that of the atom. The atoms form molecules and biomolecules. The biomolecules constitute the organelles and structures. The set of organelles form the functional unit of life, that is the cell. A set of cells specialized in specific functions form a tissue. The tissues form organs. The organs are grouped into systems, and in a multicellular organism, the systems constitute the individual. Now, let's see levels that go beyond a single individual. A population is made up of individuals of the same species. The community is formed by a set of populations. The grouping of populations of all domains, together with the abiotic factors, constitutes the ecosystem. Finally, the biosphere is the total of the ecosystems present on Earth.
My name is Andrea Lopez. I'm going to talk about homeostasis and organ systems. We come to the next topic. What is homeostasis? Homeostasis is a key concept in understanding how our body works. It means keeping things constant and comes from two Greek words, homeo meaning similar and stasis meaning stable. A more formal definition of homeostasis is a characteristic of a system that regulates its internal environment and tends to maintain a stable, relatively constant condition of properties. Homeostasis is happening constantly in our bodies. We eat, sweat, drink, dance, eat some more, have salty fries, and yet our body composition remains almost the same. If some turns out we have tons of sensors in our body that monitor the temperature, cell composition of blood pressure, osmolarity, and other things. These detectors handle the brain, the control center, when some value has deviated from normality, and trigger compensatory changes that will try to restore the value to normal. For example, imagine that you go outside and it's really hot. This will start changing your body temperature. Temperature sensors in your brain monitor body temperature, and if it starts rising, moving away from its supposed set point, this activates an effector tissue or organ that will help bring the temperature back to its set point. So now, what is an organ system? An organ system is a group of anatomical structures that work together to perform a specific function or task. Although we have learned about each organ system as a distinct entity, the functions of the body's organ system overlap considerably, and your body could not function without the cooperation of all of its organ systems. The human body is composed of 11 different organ systems, which include the integumentary system, which includes your skin, hair, subcutaneous fat, and nails. The muscular system includes the skeletal muscles, but excludes smooth and cardiac muscles. Then, the skeletal system is composed of bone, joints, cartilage, ligaments, and tendons. The nervous system includes the brain, spinal cord, and somatic nerves. The circulatory system includes your heart, blood vessels, and blood. The lymphatic system is made up of the lymphatic vessels, which travel with your blood vessels, and the lymph nodes. Finally, the respiratory system encompasses the organ of breathing, which includes your nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles, lungs, and
I'm Mariana Rodriguez, and I'm going to talk about health and disease, health in adolescence, and healthy lifestyles. Health and disease. Everything in our body is finely regulated by mechanisms that allow us to maintain homeostasis and therefore health. Therefore, disease is the loss of balance and homeostasis. Biopsychosocial perspective, health is an implicit right. Applying the postulates of the distributive justice, it seeks to satisfy the needs to create conditions for health through proper nutrition, prevention of diseases, and environmental sanitation. Currently, health is affected by industrialization, automation, and acceleration of the pace of life. From a psychological perspective, health is measured based on normal behaviors, that is, those behaviors that do not interfere with the development of the person in the different areas of his life. Adolescent health. Adolescence is a stage that is characterized by the transition between childhood and adulthood, which implies physical, cognitive, and psychosocial changes. A risk factor endangers the balance between the factors that intervene in health, such as the biological, psychological, and social process. Healthy lifestyles. If the lifestyle that an individual follows is healthy and balanced, the gene of the disease remains dormant and the condition will not manifest. Lifestyles are related to social and cultural behaviors pertain to diverse groups, including social classes and national groups.